once again, Mr. Speaker, and I'm pleased to rise today to speak on Bill C-4, the second Budget Implementation Act. And Speaker, unfortunately, I only have 10 minutes to talk about the wonderful things that are contained within Bill C-4 and about all of the wonderful things we have done as a government to not only make our economy one of the strongest performing economies in the world, certainly within the G7, creating over 1 million net new jobs since the depths of the recession, but I would like to speak on some issues that are more closer to home, rather than sort of the big macro issues. And some of those are the riding of York Centre. And I have to tell you that I am privileged and honored to represent the wonderful people of the riding of York Centre. And some of the many of the people who reside in York Centre are new to Canada, and they come from every country around the world. And we have the largest number, for example, of Russian-speaking people of any riding in the country, the third largest number of Filipino, the fastest-growing Latino population. And these people are coming to Canada for hope and opportunity. And they're coming for opportunity that our government has created for them. We have created the economic conditions where people can take advantage of and create businesses. They can be employed in jobs. And, you know, I remember growing up, my father came from Europe after the war. He was the only survivor from his family. And I remember peeking out the curtains, waiting for my dad to come home every night and seeing him haul himself out of the car and just really dragging his knuckles across the driveway. Because I really wanted to play with him. I wanted him to help me with my homework. And I remember how dead tired he was. He nevertheless took the time to help me with my homework, to engage with me, to read to me. And Speaker, when I go around the riding of York Centre, and I do a lot of community outreach, as I'm sure many of the other members do in this chamber, when I go around and I canvass and I go door to door and I go to community events, and I see so many people who are new to this country of Canada and are new to the riding of York Centre, and are trying to be the best Canadians they possibly can, because they have come to this country for a variety of reasons, certainly to seek opportunity, but to escape persecution and racism. And they're coming here not so much for themselves, but more for their kids. And when I see them with their kids and with their families so engaged, and I remember my youth when I was growing up, and I felt exactly the same way. So I know how the new immigrants to York Centre are feeling, because I see me in them. And so it's wonderful to know that we have a government that is supporting, coming to the aid and having the backs of Canadians, so that we have fostered an economy whereby we have job creation, we have an environment whereby small business can flourish. And Speaker, just to get down to some specifics, you know, we have in Canada, and we're recognized by a number of international organizations from the OECD to the IMF as having the strongest economic fundamentals in place. And we've had these fundamentals in place because we have a plan. And you know, Speaker, when I'm back in the riding, and I go to a lot of schools, junior highs and high schools, and I ask the kids when I'm speaking to them, what's your plan for the future? And everybody has a plan of some sort. Either they're going to go into public service, they're going to go into business, they hope to seek a job in IT, and so on. But everybody has a plan. And our plan since 2006 has been based on job creation. Job creation whereby, and balancing the budget, whereby we won't have to raise taxes. In fact, we're lowering taxes. And what we have done, for example, for the average Canadian family of four, we have lowered taxes by $3,200 on average. That's a lot of money for people. You know, for businesses, we have extended the hiring tax credit. This is going to help 565,000 small businesses in the country, so they can go out and hire more people. This will save hundreds of millions of dollars to businesses, so they can invest it more in their business, and rather than giving it to the government, whereby now they can create jobs for people who need them. And you know, we all know that we have a shortage of skilled labor in this country. So people are out seeking jobs. And you know what, Speaker? I'll tell you something. That is our job complete? Yes, we've created over 1 million net new jobs since the depths of the recession. But is our job complete? No, and it won't be complete until every Canadian who wants a job is able to have a job. That's when we know our job will be complete. And you know, Speaker, back in 2006, we inherited an economy that was doing well, and what we did was, rather than continue on and continue spending and raising taxes as previous governments had done, and balancing our budget on the backs of the most vulnerable Canadians, as the Liberals did in the mid-90s, by cutting social transfers, by cutting the Canada Health Transfer. What we did instead was to pay down debt. And we paid out about $38 billion in debt from 2006 to 2008. And as a result of that, that gave us some maneuverability, the cushion that we were able to use so we could inject more money into the economy when the recession hit in 2008. And we invested millions of dollars into the economy, and these projects that we invested in were shovel ready. We have never gotten government, this must be a record for government, getting that money out the door as quickly as possible and getting the projects underway. And I think every project that has started as a result of the economic stimulus back in 2008, 9, and 10 is complete. And that is some kind of record, I would think, that in Canadian history. But let me say, Speaker, that our job is not finished, and our government, of course, remains focused on what matters most to Canadians, and what matters most to Canadians is jobs, growth, and long-term prosperity. And Speaker, it's not increasing taxes, it's not engaging in wild, harebrained spending schemes as the NDP is proposing, or legalizing marijuana as the Liberals are proposing. We have a very thorough economic plan that has been in place since 2006. And Speaker, our low tax agenda has served us well. Canadians are happy to know that they're paying less tax today. GST, for example, is a commitment that we made in the election campaign. We've lowered from 7 to 6 to 5%. That puts more money back in the pockets of Canadians where it belongs. And Canadians take that money and they spend it. And when they spend it, it creates jobs and it creates economic activity. And that's a good thing, Speaker. That's a good thing. We're not proposing a $21 billion carbon tax like the NDP is, which will increase the cost of everything. We're heading to the Christmas season now, and we would be paying more for toys for our kids if we had a $21 billion carbon tax, and that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable to Canadians, and that's unacceptable certainly to us in the government. So, Speaker, another thing that our government is focused on is a very aggressive trade agenda. We have negotiated since we took government in 2006 six additional free trade agreements. So far, we've had 16 trade agreements and foreign investment promotion agreements. This is a record. We just concluded agreement on the CETA, the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement with Europe, with the European Union. This will create thousands of new jobs. It will create employment, economic activity. It will create all kinds of activity for Canadians to find more jobs. It will open up markets in Europe. 500,000 or 500 million people in Europe will now be able to access the Canadian market. Canadian manufacturers and sellers will be able to sell their products within the European Union. This is really a good thing. Speaker, we hear from the opposition how anti-trade that they are. And this is unacceptable because trade means jobs. And we know that, and Canadians know that. And Canadians sent us here to get a job done. They gave us a majority in 2011 based on an economic platform that we put forward to them. They approved of it. They sent us here to get the job done. Speaker, we have the strongest, economic fundamentals because as a result of our economic action plan of any country around the world. Our net to GDP ratio, for example, is 35%. We've committed by 2021 to get that down to 25%, as we had stated at Los Cabos in the G20, at the G20. Speaker, it's when I go back to the riding and I see new immigrants who are working so hard. And Speaker, many of them who have been in Canada for a few years are now starting their own businesses. And I see that in a variety of communities, particularly in the Russian-speaking and Filipino community. They are starting their own small businesses and they're starting to hire people. This is a wonderful thing to see. And this is why they came to Canada, so they can send their kids to school, so they can send their kids to university, so they can become professionals and doctors and lawyers and members of parliament, and perhaps even a prime minister will have one day of Russian-speaking descent or Filipino descent or of Latino descent. And that would be wonderful to see. So, Speaker, in conclusion, just let me say that our economic policy is envied around the world. Our economic performance is a model thanks to our wonderful finance minister, who has been recognized as the world's best finance minister. And Speaker, just let me conclude by saying that I hope everybody in this House will support Bill C-4 to keep our economy #1 in the world. Thank you.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. L'honorable député de Beauport-Limoilou.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for York Centre, with whom I've been working in the Finance Committee. I would find it quite entertaining if we were not dealing with a serious subject. He talked about the average tax reductions for a four-person family of several $1,000s, but does not take into account the actual situation and actual average revenues, rather than the median one. There are lots of families then that haven't been able to enjoy these reductions. In our study of disparities, the chief economist of the Toronto Dominion Bank, that the well-off have become much wealthier. And a part of these tax reductions then were for people who did not have absolutely any need to reduce their taxes. A fraction of the highest people increased their income by 500%. I'd like to ask my colleague why he is encouraging tax reduction for the rich so that they can fill up their pockets with money.
Well, thank you, Speaker. And I acknowledge my honourable friend who I sit on the Finance Committee with, who does some very hard work there, and I thank him for that. Speaker, I would like to say, though, that you know, the NDP shouldn't let, or they do seem to let the facts get in the way of a good argument, because what we have seen in this country is that we have lowered corporate tax, for example, the corporate tax rate from down to 15%. And what we have seen is an increase in corporate tax revenues as a result of that. And what do corporations do when they have more money? Well, they invest and to create more jobs. And that is a wonderful thing to see. And that is why we have over 1 million net new jobs created in this country since the end of the recession. You know, the NDP is concerned about more spending, higher taxation. They want to bring in a $21 billion carbon tax, which would raise the cost of everything, including kids' toys in this holiday season. It's unacceptable that Canadians would even consider to think that the NDP is a legitimate option when all they do is raise taxes and get engaged in wild spending.
Comments for the member to stand.
Order. Just a minute. Wait. The honourable member for Timmins James Bay is rising on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I listen to my honourable colleague. He misrepresents the facts. He's misrepresenting things back to constituents. It's not right, Mr. Speaker. He can say whatever he wants, but if he wants to make up facts, he should stand outside and do it outside.
That's not a point of order, obviously. Member for York Centre, if he wishes to continue with his response.
I'm fine, thank you, Speaker.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
You know, Mr. Speaker, in listening to a few of the Conservatives stand up and speak, I'm beginning to believe that the Minister of Finance's self-confidence must be a little low. Time and time again, we get a member who will stand up and say, we have the best Minister of Finance in the world. Well, number one, that is debatable at best. And I would suggest to you that somewhat exaggeration of reality to make that sort of a claim. And the facts of the matter will clearly demonstrate that. In the member's speech, he made reference to the trade agreements, free trade agreements, and how wonderful they are. And the government's moved forward on so many different free trade agreements, and we're very much aware of that. We've supported the free trade agreements as the Liberal Party has in the past. The concern that I have, that I think most Canadians, if not all Canadians would have, would be the overall trade balance. When the Conservatives took government, there was a trade surplus, billions of dollars in trade surplus, and this government has turned it into billions of dollars of trade deficit. I'm wondering if the member can explain why the deficit.
Honourable member for York Centre, you have 45 seconds.
Well, thank you, Speaker. I want to thank the member for his question, and what I would say is that our government has engaged aggressively in promoting trade and negotiating a variety of free trade agreements with countries around the world, and of course foreign investment promotion agreements also. But our government is interested in free trade with countries so they can create jobs in this country. Our government is not interested in the drug trade like the Liberals are to promote marijuana smoking. Our government is interested in free trade for jobs. Their party is interested in smoking marijuana.